Well, welcome to episode 15 of SDRs on Mars. I'm here with Ryan Williams at Ready Education to tell us a little bit about sales from Ryan.
Yeah, happy to be on the show here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being on. Just to even start with the basics here, what do you do with Ready Education?
Yeah, so my position is a senior SDR, senior sales development representative. We're sort of a new team at Ready Education. There's been a couple iterations of SDR teams, but currently it's myself and my manager, Sunny, and we're kind of building the team from the ground up. Do sort of the traditional SDR work, a lot of emails, a lot of calls, mostly cold calls and cold emails. But we do have a great marketing team as well that provides us with some leads and following up on folks that have attended webinars, things like that. And again, just kind of classic SDR work, getting in touch with people, gauging if there's any interest, and booking meetings for our account executive team, which are ultimately the closers.
Awesome. Okay, cool. And whereabouts is Ready Education based?
So there's a Montreal office. It's sort of an amalgamation, actually, of two companies a few years back. So there was Ooh La La, which was the Canadian office, the Montreal office, and then Dub Labs, which was out of the US. I don't think we currently have a brick and mortar office in the US. We still have the Montreal one, but folks are kind of spread out all over. Like there's people across Canada. There's obviously sort of a focus in Montreal. And then in the US, there's quite a few people in Boston. I know our CEO and my boss, the VP of sales, is in Boston. But again, people are spread out kind of all over. We've got folks in Oregon, folks in California, folks in, I think, Maine. So kind of spread all over Canada and the US.
Cool. Okay. So you would probably be coordinating most with the Montreal office. Am I correct in that assumption?
So I
I
work.
guess you mentioned that your bosses are in Boston, so maybe not.
Yeah, so John Hope is our VP of sales, who's awesome. So I work quite a bit with him. So he's out of Boston, and then my sort of the SDR manager, Sunny, he's in Mississauga. So myself, I'm in Ottawa. Sunny's in Mississauga. John's in Boston, and that's kind of the three main locations, I guess, that I deal with.
And do you focus on selling into local markets, or are you selling internationally?
Internationally, I mean, it's mainly within the US. Like for me currently, I've only been in the role about 4.5 months. So I'm currently focused primarily on community colleges. So if you're familiar with the education system, it's quite a bit different in the US than Canada.
Yep.
Yeah, so primarily focused on community colleges currently in the US. But technically speaking, I call all around the US and Canada as well. And yeah, we have some international business as well, but not a ton of it. I have one dealing with a South African
Okay.
university, which was pretty cool. But otherwise, yeah, pretty much in the US and Canada.
Cool. Now, I think you had some experience selling into American markets with net-to-phone. Am I correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I was on the small SDR team that was selling into the US for net2phone, which was an interesting experience. A lot of growth there for sure.
Right. And so the reason I kind of go there is because, from what I understand, selling into the American market versus Canadian markets, it's a little bit different. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, no, it's a great observation. Yeah, I don't know. Folks are like, I don't want to stereotype, but it certainly seems, with my experience calling both the US and Canada, Canadians generally are a little bit more polite, a little bit less likely to just kind of hang up on you. Um, they'll still tell you no at about the same rate, but they're, a little bit more polite about it. I guess they'll say sorry. I'm not interested. Versus, calling like New York or something, like the receptionist, they'll just straight up hang up on you. Like they're yeah, they don't mince words. They'll tell you where to go and when to go there. But it's interesting calling like within the States, you'll find different pockets. Like calling Florida is very different from calling Texas, is very different from calling California or New York. So I find like calling Texas, they're almost a lot more similar to Canadians, a lot more kind of polite and not as aggressive, I guess. And then, as I said, New York, they're just like, oh, yeah, for sure, I'll transfer you. And then they just hang right up. Like they do not care. So, yeah, it's an interesting experience.
None of that. That's funny. Okay, so maybe could you elaborate a little bit on like what kind of sort of during that discovery process, what that might look like a little bit?
Yeah, so with Ready Education, we're very focused on problem selling as opposed to feature selling. Just kind of a quick overview of sort of the product and service we provide. It's a mobile app for college and university students. So the university or college runs it. They have sort of their back end. But for the end user, the student, the staff, and the faculty, it's an app on their smartphone. It sort of centralizes all the resources that you would need as a student. And then the unique aspect of what we do, and there are other competitors starting to sort of bring this into their approach as well, but is a social component. So there's essentially an intra-social network built into it, something similar to like a Facebook wall, and you can have different groups. So that's at a high level, sort of the product. But from a discovery standpoint, I'll have a call with somebody. I don't do much discovery myself, to be honest. It's very light, and it's just kind of whatever I can organically mix into the conversation. What are the problems you're facing? We hear this a lot from, the partners we work with. Are you seeing this as well? Kind of letting them lead the conversation a bit. And then once if there is interest there, I'll book a follow-up call with one of our account executives. They're all fantastic and very much industry experts, and they'll really dig into, what interested you in taking this call. Similar to what I said, we're seeing these challenges with the partners we work with. Are you seeing this as well? And then depending what they indicate they are facing, we'll kind of, tell them a story. Oh, okay, here's how this institution we work with has dealt with that exact problem using our platform. And, it's very much like our platform is not a silver bullet, which I think is important to note. It's not something that's going to fix all the problems right away, but it's a tool that can help. So discovery really is about digging in and finding what problems they have that maybe they didn't even know they had per se. And then, the next call, the demo, is sort of to lay out how we might go about solving those problems.
Okay. So I think a classic like discovery sort of like objective is to sort of get that like Bant consideration down, like budget, authority, needs, timeline. There, I did it. Do you think Bant is like really descriptive of like what you try and do with discovery?
In a way, I think it's our sales cycle is quite a bit longer, certainly compared to like net to phone, where it was, there's the odd one where you'd close it on the phone. Like it's the same day decision, typically within a month. With us, I mean, they've brought the sales cycle down. It used to be something like, I don't know, not a year, but somewhere, over half a year, to now it's down to about 3 months sort of thing. But in terms of Bant, it's not a huge priority for me because we're very much trying to get a conversation with anybody. Sort of in terms of like authority, we're not necessarily going to go straight to the person who's going to be signing the check or signing that deal. But it's more about, finding folks that are kind of on the front lines, if you will, that understand these challenges and can speak to them. And then we're almost helping them bring this information and this sort of possible solution to their bosses, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So determining Bant is really a longer process for us.
Okay.
Yeah, it can take, a couple months. Like budget is something in higher ed that's always kind of, tough. Like no schools have budget, but if it's something that's really going to help, then all of a sudden there's money there. So, need and timeline too. Again, it's a lot of scenarios we're speaking with schools that don't have an app or they've never really looked into getting one. So it's, again, going back to the discovery, I guess, like uncovering that need is really important because they may not know that they need it or they may not think about it that way. And then timeline, again, with higher ed, there's September is a very busy time of year. January, February is a very busy time of year. So yeah, timeline is sometimes a challenge, I would say, in my limited experience. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
can see
it's a
that.
long drawn out process for Bant for us for sure.
Okay. And so while you're having these conversations, what are some, I don't even know if objections are the right word, because you're talking about, trying to educate them about what this service actually can do.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find that maybe there's a better way I should describe that or ask that question? Like, what are the objections that you run into, or like maybe it's something a little different?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of similar. Like, I think all SDRs or any salesperson that's making cold calls is going to hear kind of the classic brush off. So I'm in a meeting, or now's not a good time, or too busy. We have no budget, that sort of thing. So there's definitely those same ones that I would have heard at Net2Phone, that you would hear at any other sales role. Um, I think in those, I mean, like for me, it's about kind of being respectful. So like one thing that I didn't really do at Net2Phone that I do now is asking for permission. So using a permission-based opener, saying, hey, it's Ryan Williams over at Ready Ed. I know you weren't expecting my call. Can I quickly, explain why I called? You can let me know if it makes sense for us to chat or not. So doing that has been helpful, because people will, tell you up front, oh no, I'm in a meeting, and then you just go, oh, okay, well, no problem. I'll call you back in a couple hours. Like, does that work for you, or is tomorrow morning better? So I think kind of preemptively addressing those objections is helpful. And then in terms of, like timeline or budget, as we were sort of just talking about, for us with higher ed, because it is such a long process and timeline is very challenging. It's more so like our first call is not a sales call in any way, shape, or form. It's very much a meeting to see if you even have challenges that we can help you with. Like, we're not the right fit for every school. So it's kind of a mutual conversation to see if there's an opportunity to partner and if there's alignment of strategy and objectives. So I just explain that to folks, and some of them some of them laugh and say, "Yeah, it's still a sales call," and hang up. But some people are receptive to it, and it is genuine. Like, I wouldn't be saying that if I didn't honestly believe it. So yeah, a lot of similar objections
Yeah,
as other folks.
fair enough. Okay, cool. I mean, I think you're always going to run into some of those classics. Like it's just I'm running into a meeting. Yeah, that was a pretty solid example. I think I hear that one pretty consistently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly.
Cool. Okay. And so in this space, it's a little different than, I guess, like telecommunications, for example, that you were doing previously. Do you find there's maybe different tools or strategies that you use more in this space?
Definitely, yeah. In terms of tools, I mean, we're using a different CRM that I wasn't familiar with. So we use HubSpot. Previously at Net2Phone, I was using Salesforce, and then we were using Outreach at one point as well. But that's pretty similar. I mean, it's just a matter of figuring out how to use the sequencing and different email tactics and things like that. But from like a strategic standpoint, one thing I've been using is Vidyard, as we've talked about before. So I cut up a bunch of we have a lot of webinars with our partners, our clients, talking about their experience with us and how they use the platform and how it's helped them, which are fantastic. But most people don't have an hour to watch a recorded webinar. So I made little clips that are between sort of 30 seconds to 90 seconds. And I've been linking to those in emails. And I think that those add a lot of context. One thing that we kind of not struggle with, but something that's a challenge is like people don't really understand what we do, or they'll go, oh, okay, they're just another app. Like, we have one of those already, which isn't necessarily the case. So I think that tool has been really interesting to use, and it's useful throughout kind of the sales process as well, whether they're top of funnel or closer to the end. One thing that is different from what I was doing before is it's more of an enterprise sale. So it's about sort of finding one person, and then if they see the value in it, getting them, that's your champion, and getting them to bring more people in on their side of the conversation. So using a clip from Vidyard, for example, is a lot more easily shareable from there. And so I found that to be helpful. helping your champion bring people into the conversation by using a tool like Vidyard with a small clip, and that talks to the strategy as well. It's enterprise sales. It's got a multi-thread. You got to get different touch points with different stakeholders. So that's something I'm certainly getting used to. I didn't have experience in that really before, so that's been a learning curve, definitely.
Cool. And I probably should have asked this, so maybe to back up for a second, what is the problem that Ready Education solves with their product?
So I mean, it's pretty complex. Like, there's a lot of problems that higher ed institutions face, but what it really boils down to is student communication and engagement. So a big problem that we hear from schools is that, and I can speak to this anecdotally from my own student experience, is students don't read emails. And I mean, I'm pretty on top of my emails. Like, generally speaking, I like to have that inbox zero at the end of the day. And my like, I went to Carleton in Ottawa. My Carleton email was just terrible. There's probably thousands of unread emails in there. So, and that's the primary method of communication for universities. So what folks we speak with will say is, we email students before they start, whether they're freshmen or they're returning. These are the forms you have to fill out. These are the financial aid deadlines, things like that. And then they arrive at school and they say, yeah, I had no idea that I had these deadlines or these forms to fill out, even though they were definitely sent those emails. So yeah, getting visibility on information, you can branch that out into any aspect of university, whether it's financial aid, whether it's academics, social events, etc. So communication is kind of the primary thing that we solve. And then the engagement. So again, getting more students to attend events, getting more students to engage with their peers, whether it's online or in person. The platform sort of allows that social connection, which is surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, a big reason that a lot of students drop out. They don't feel like they belong to the school or the campus, and that's sort of another issue that we help address.
Right. Okay, cool. And so this is not your first sales role. We met with while you were working with Net2Phone, and you had previously done like a market research kind of role, and now you're in like another role that's kind of like very sales focused.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you keep coming back to sales? Why do you like sales?
It's a love-hate relationship. I think a lot of people in sales will tell you that. There's a lot of long days and stressful nights. Looking at targets and whatnot. But I think the thing for me is, it's kind of funny. Like, I always thought I was going to be in sort of marketing. I was originally an accounting student, decided I didn't want to be an accountant, and then kind of switched the focus more sort of marketing.
That's a pretty big change from accounting to marketing.
Yeah, huge change. I was good at accounting, and then I got to university, and I was like, yeah, I just don't know if I want to be like crunching numbers day in and day out for the rest of my life. I just don't think I can do it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which speaks to why I was interested in marketing, and now am interested in sales. Is you get to be creative on sort of a daily basis. Like, every conversation you have is, could go any different way, depending who you're speaking with, depending what they're interested in or not interested in. I really love writing copy. So like for emails and writing sequences, I really love like the philosophy behind, what is it that leads somebody to open an email? What is it that leads somebody to read through an entire email or click on a link? And how can you tie that in with phone calls and voicemail messages, and eventually try to gain that interest over time and get them to book a meeting with you? So yeah, you get to mix kind of analytics, the number side of things, which is sort of that accounting background, and then the creative aspect of sales. I think really interests me, and I like helping people too, and that's kind of how I frame what I do. I try to help people, and if they buy our product and it's going to help them, that's great. If it's not going to help them, then that's fine too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool. It's I find it funny that you started in accounting and ended up in sales. I took enough accounting to know that I'm not an accountant.
Yeah, it's I mean, we need accountants. They're great and they're good at what they do. I don't know, the day in and day out number crunching. I just don't think I could do it.
Oh, it's a super practical skill, but I
Hmm.
find it, yeah, kind of mind numbing.
Absolutely, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Okay, so if you were to give some advice to someone maybe considering getting into sales, what would you tell that person?
Um, I mean, yeah, if you're interested in it, go for it. Like sales is something, especially, a lot of folks start off as SDRs. I think sales, like another thing, I guess that interested me about sales is you're very much like in control of your own fate. You can come in not knowing anything, and I mean, you do want to look for somebody or a company that has good structure and good coaching if you're just starting off. So that would be one piece of advice. But I mean, even if you don't have that coaching, like you can really, I mean, there's so much available online. There's so many resources, whether it's, thought leaders on LinkedIn sharing, free kind of coaching tips. There's so many free webinars, books, cheap or even free courses you can take online. So for somebody that's new in sales, I would recommend that you just, dive into the learning side of things, read as many books as you can, learn as much as you can, take as much in as possible in the first, 3 to 6 months. And that's really going to help in a big way. Um, so yeah, that'd be the big thing for somebody starting off. And then for me, something that's important is really believing in, the product or the service that you're talking about, and the company that you work for. I think that's really important. Like with Net2Phone, I was looking at that as, we help small and medium businesses compete with larger businesses. Like the value proposition for a small business is often, you might pay a little bit more, but you're going to get that better customer service. You're going to be talking with, the owner of the company or somebody that really, really cares. And having a good communication system is essential to that process and that value proposition. So that's kind of how I looked at that. And, Net2Phone, like I genuinely believe has, the best customer service out there from a telecom perspective. So that's hugely important. And then with Ready Education, I went to Carleton University. I went to Algonquin College. I'm a big believer in higher education, and I think it helps you grow as a person from kind of a philosophical standpoint, but also, gives you the opportunity to learn skills that hopefully will, lead to employment in the future and help you grow as an individual. So, everybody at Ready Education, it's clear, really cares about students and student success. So, I really believe in the product and the people I work with. So I think that's absolutely essential for anybody going into sales to keep in the back of their mind.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty valid. And I don't actually hear people focus on that all the time, but like
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's pretty hard to like get up and feel like you can sell something or like tell people about this thing if you don't believe in it. Like it kind of needs to fit. And in my brain, anyway, I'm sure there's lots of different perspectives on that.
Yeah.
Um, cool. So how do you? I mean, you shared a video with me a little while ago, the pump up football video. I liked that. But are there any other things that you do to kind of like get yourself ready for the day, or like ready to be like, hey, I'm gonna like crush all these cold calls out today?
Yeah, the football pump up video. Right before a call, blitz. I'll listen to that, blast that in the headphones. Get some heavy rock music going or something. In terms of preparing, I think um, preparing like the night before, I think is important. And what I mean by that is, at the end of your day, maybe block off like an hour or two and do a bit of prospecting, load up your contacts that you want to call the next day. So the next morning you can just kind of wake up and, go through your morning routine, sit down, and you don't have to do that sort of mind numbing, not in an accounting sense, but sort of an admin mind numbing way, is loading up contacts and doing the research. So I find doing that the day before, having it ready for when you want to make those calls is helpful. And then just giving yourself space. Like one mistake I think a lot of people have been making with working remotely is like waking up at 8:55, splashing some water in their face, and then making calls at 9. I get up at least an hour before I start working, like to shower, have a bite to eat, maybe read or, look through like hockey news or something on my phone, just to kind of wake up and get in the right mind frame. So yeah, giving yourself a bit of runway when you wake up and have a good morning routine set, I think is really helpful.
Actually, that being said, the hockey flow is coming in pretty strong for you. Are
Yeah.
you doing any like fantasy hockey or anything this year?
I have a fantasy hockey draft tomorrow, and I have my first beer league game tonight. So yeah, we'll see if the flow makes me any better. I hope so, because otherwise, I don't know why I've been growing it.
I mean, it looks like it would make you better. So,
I think yeah, I don't know. Aerodynamics could be better, could be worse, but yeah, I'm a little bit nervous for tonight. The cardio after 2 years of pandemic is not going to be good.
yeah, fair enough. I'm developing a little bit of a pandemic gut right now, and I have to figure out a
Yeah.
strategy this year.
Yeah, I think everybody everybody is. So if everybody has a COVID gut, nobody has one. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good way to look at it. But yeah, all this like really good at like baking and all this like stuff that I'm not used to doing. It's like sort of contributed to that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Cool. Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like hockey is definitely an outlet for you to kind of break the day to day. Do you have anything else that is sort of like a go to for you to kind of change that pace?
I'll try to go like middle start of the day, middle of the day, end of the day. I'll try to go on like a quick walk. Admittedly, it's something I haven't been doing the past month or so, so it's a habit I need to get back into. Just to going back to the morning routine thing, it kind of gets the blood flowing, wakes you up, and gets gets the brain more active. So you're just going on little walks. I'll play video games with friends here and there. Now that COVID is on the way out, hopefully starting to socialize a little bit more. So unwinding on the weekend, like just hanging out with friends and chatting, I think is nice and important. I've gone camping a couple times the past month, which has been really nice to really disconnect. Like I'll turn my phone off entirely, not look at it for a couple days, hang out by the fire, have a couple beers, and just kind of unwind. I think is nice. So yeah, it's pretty essential for sales because you're on kind of all the time, even when you're not technically working.
Hmm.
So yeah, having little hobbies and being able to disconnect here and there is really important.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like to ask that because I think there's different strategies, but it is important that people do it, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end of like what I wanted to get through today. What's next for Ready Education? What's next for you, Ryan?
For education, so I mean, there's some exciting, like we recently acquired within the last few months a couple companies in Europe. So one is Collabco, they're in the UK, in England, and then Stucom, which is out of the Netherlands. They have great products. I think there's some interesting stuff coming on that front. Like I'll be interested to see how those products integrate with ours and how it's just going to make everything better. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to: increased collaboration with the different teams, and they have different experiences and views on things than we do. So we've already seen it kind of starting, having people reach out and ask how I'm doing, some of the strategies I'm using, and hopping on Zoom calls with them is really really interesting. So yeah, we're looking to expand globally, I guess, is what's coming, and yeah, I'm really curious to see kind of how things play out in terms of the organization and the direction we're headed. But definitely on the up and up. So it's an exciting time to be a part of the company for sure.
Yeah, that's some interesting collaboration for sure. Because we were just talking about sort of the approach in different markets and how that all works. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm sure someone in Norway might have a different thought process on how it all goes.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of similarities, but there's definitely nuance there, and yeah, just different approaches. They have people that have been in higher ed for a decade, multiple decades even. So a lot of great experience on their end, and that's only going to make the team stronger and better, and that'll continue moving forward. So that's good for sure.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today, Ryan.
Yeah, my
Again,
pleasure.
Ryan Williams at Ready Ed. I'm going to tag him in this, and if you guys want to learn a little more about some communication solutions for higher education, you can definitely reach out to Ryan.
Absolutely, yeah. Or any sales questions, SDR questions, always open and happy to chat.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you for the time, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.